Hello everyone, this is Anika Amjadrachi. In today's class, we will discuss about the architecture of contemporary world. But before that, we will know about modern architecture and postmodern architecture in brief. Postmodern architecture was an architectural style before the contemporary architecture, and modern architecture was another architectural style before the postmodern architecture. In modern architecture, typically, we can see that form is the main thing that the architects wanted to prioritize. The contemporary design in today's day that is known as contemporary architecture, there is no distinctive characteristics. Every day the design is changing, so contemporary architecture is always changing, an ever-changing trend. But in modern era, the architects followed some rules and regulations, and there were some distinctive features of modern architecture that the architects always tried to maintain. Modern design came after a long period of highly decorated and fancy home design that held in the Victorian era, as well as we can see in Roman and Gothic architectural style. Modernist architects wanted to create highly functional buildings with simplicity, and they abandoned the extra features like the ornamentations, floral patterns, and extra floral ornamentation from the building. Instead, the homes had open floor plans, asymmetry, and huge panels of windows and glass walls. They wanted to create a simple home that was also highly functional. They left out anything unnecessary. Modern architecture focuses largely on the functionality over the form and are basically identified by form follows function, quoted by Louis Sullivan. There are some modern architects, we know about them. Then we will discuss about postmodernism, another architectural feature after the modern architects failed to attract the people. Some modern buildings was boring, and people wanted to examine, or people wanted to try another thing always. So the postmodern architects tried to make the building more interesting using some extra features. They didn't always maintain the thumb rule set by the modern architects. Postmodernism has its origin in perceived failure of modern architecture, we can say. Postmodern architects found this notion of simplicity in design truly unattractive. So they wanted to make their buildings more attractive. As we can see in Sydney Opera House, the form is totally different. And the form also attracts the people. It is also functional as well as it also attracts the people. It is both comfortable and also a treat to eye. Modernists did not account for the desire for beauty only. In response, architects wanted to reintroduce ornament, color, decoration, and human scale to buildings. Form was no longer to be defined solely by its functional requirements or minimal appearance, as we can see in Bonaventure House, designed by Robert Venturi. In this building, we can see different kinds of shapes like square, rectangle, triangular roof. We can say gable roof, circular arc. The architects try to incorporate these shapes to make the elevation more lively and to break the monotony as well. And also it is highly functional, as we can see the gable roofs are functional in the regions where rainfall and snow is predominant. Again, there was always debate between the modernist and postmodernist architects. There's the less is more, and the postmodernist architects thought that less is more. So what are the distinctive characteristics between modernism and postmodernism? Modernism was a concept of true to materials. This was one of the main features of modern architecture, that they used to maintain the materials as they are. They were always true to materials, and no extra cladding and no extra ornamentation were used. there, but the appearance of material ought to be seen rather than concealed or altered to represent something else. We can say absence of ornamentation was another main feature of modernism. But in postmodernism is the rejection of strict rules set by the early modernists and seeks meaning and expression in the use of buildings. Like in this example, Team Disney Burbank, California, we can see that there is some ornamentation introduced in this building. Now, the forms are not reduced to an absolute minimum. They are built and shaped for their own sake. Playful, extravagant forms can be added there also. Another feature we can see in this example that in Villa Savoye there is flat-roof, open floor plans, but in Vanaventuri House, which was an example of postmodernism, we can see that gable roof, it make the building different and more attractive. So that was the main purpose of the postmodernist architects. Now we will discuss about the contemporary architecture. What is contemporary architecture? So we can simply say that contemporary architecture is the architecture of present day. Contemporary architects are working in several different styles, from postmodernism and high-tech architecture to highly conceptual and expressive forms and designs resembling sculptures on an enormous scale. There are so many styles in contemporary architecture and no single style is predominant. We have some different styles and approaches in common, but the use of very advanced technology and modern building materials such as tube structures, which allows us to construction of buildings that are taller, lighter, and stronger than those in the 20th century. Again, there are so many advanced materials nowadays we can use in the contemporary architecture. Also, computer-aided design helped us to make these buildings with more precision and speed. Contemporary buildings and styles vary greatly. Some features concrete structures wrapped in glass or aluminum screens, very asymmetric facets, and cantilevered sections which hang over the street. And also we will see some examples of vernacular architecture too. That is also included in contemporary architecture. While modernism put down roots in nature and simplicity, the contemporary architecture looks at what is going on right now. It is always changing, ever changing, and it is always goes with the trend. Here are some topics, we can say some distinctive styles in contemporary architecture that the architects follows nowadays. These are high-tech architecture, deconstructivism, blobitecture, or simply we can say blobs, complementary or vernacular architecture, sustainable architecture, and neo-modern architecture. Now we will see briefly what these styles exactly are. In high-tech architecture, we will see that the buildings itself is exposed. The service lines, plumbings are not hidden. There is a relationship between the interior and exterior of the building. And in deconstructivism, we will see some fragmentations. This is not something like a symmetrical form or simple forms or form follows function. That is not necessary in this style. Deconstructivism is a movement of postmodern architecture which appeared in 1980s. It gives the impression of fragmentation in the building of the constructed buildings, commonly characterized by an absence of obvious harmony, continuity, or symmetry. Then we will have another style, that is sustainable architecture. Sustainable architecture seeks to minimize the negative environmental impact of buildings by efficiency and moderation of in use of materials, energy development, space, and ecosystem at large. It will always consider the environmental impact and the materials that will help us to negate the bad environmental impact caused by the building. Then we will have another style in contemporary architecture that is known as vernacular architecture. Vernacular architecture is characterized by the use of local materials and knowledge, building traditions, and methods of construction. Another architectural style of contemporary architecture is neoclassical architecture. Neoclassicism, or the neoclassical movement, is a contemporary movement in architecture that continues the practice of classical architecture in today's world too. And last but not the least, we have another style that is neo-modern or neo-modernist architecture. Neo-modern is a reaction to the complexity of postmodern architecture and eclecticism in architecture, seeking greater simplicity. So that was my today's lesson. I hope that it will help you to understand the lesson. Thank you so much.